Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 50th show. Tonight is an absolute groundbreaker. This is our 50th broadcast on DiscovrTV, and we have no thoughts of stopping this amazing chat show. So, those who follow us, they know that we bring you candid interviews with all kinds of legendary artists, music business people, anybody who's contributed to the mosaic that is the backbone of South Africa's music heritage. Tonight's guest, he's a man who has lived the life of his dreams as he has followed his love and passion for R&B to Australia, UK, the USA, and he's still living that life, and I don't believe he will ever stop. My guest tonight, an incredible force in the music business, spanning around 50 decades, still going strong with his zest for life and his love of music, Selwyn Miller. Welcome. It is so awesome to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Nice being here.
Oh, it's just wonderful. You in New Orleans right now, correct?
Correct. I've lived here for about 20 years now.
Awesome. And what a place for music.
Yeah. After, I think per capita, probably the highest standard of musicianship of any city in the world.
Wow.
You know, they have...
That's something.
You can go, this is one of the few cities where you can go to a corner bar and see world-class musicians.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. And you live there, and you had to get up a little bit early today, hey?
Not really.
Not terrible.
Nah.
That's good. We don't want to wake you up too early, but you know, sometimes the time lag is a bit strange. I wanted to start, you were definitely chosen for this path when you were very, very young. Take us on that journey. Where did this love for music start? But more so, the love for R&B, rock and roll, and soul music. Where did that all come from, Selwyn?
Well, you know, just starting right from the very beginning. You know, in my home as a kid, you know, my late father was very musical. You know, he was always singing and dancing and whistling, and he was that kind of guy. And he, you know, as a little boy, he used to take me to the pantomimes, and more important, you know, they whatever used to come to Cape Town. Yes. And when I was about 4 or 5 years old, it was like a yearly thing. Every year he used to take me to the 2 top touring shows, which were the Golden City Dixies and African jazz.
Okay.
And, I mean, this just like made my day. And over New Year's, we used to go to the Greenpoint track to see the Kaapse Klopsters, or the Cape Town Carnival as it was in those days, which is a very derogatory term today. But in those, I mean, I was so influenced and blown away. I used to come home and practice all the songs.
So were you ever a musician?
I've tried to play. I learned piano, I learned guitar, but I wasn't really good. I thought I'd be much better at promoting great musicians.
Well, you chose well. You definitely chose the right path. You so school and all that. When did you first starting dabbling in being an impresario, so to speak, in those days?
Well, let me get back and go a little earlier than that. You know, well, of course, you know, in those days we didn't have television in South Africa.
Sure.
But I used to listen religiously to 2 new releases programs every night and every morning. At night at 7:30, from Monday to Thursdays, it was Mr. Walker Wants to Play on Springbok Radio. And in the morning at 7 o'clock, it was Eric Egan playing the new releases.
Yes.
Anyway, one Monday night, John Walker and Mr. Walker wants to play Little Richard, doing Long Tall Sally and Tutti Frutti. And he said, well, that's just screaming. We'll never play this again. And that literally turned my world upside down. It was the greatest thing I'd ever heard in my life, you know. And there was such an outcry the next day that he had to play Little Richard every night that on the radio.
I love it. Yeah.
At that point, I decided that the music business was definitely in my future. That's what it had to be. Much. My mother wasn't too keen on the idea, you know. For a nice Jewish boy, you had to be a loyal
boy. Yeah, and get married and have children, to be a nice Jewish boy.
That was definitely not for me, you know.
Sure.
So, in any event, what happened was, you know, when I finished school, I had to find a way to get to England, because at that time the Beatles and the Stones and the Animals, everything was happening. So I said to my mom, I was really a naughty boy, and I said to my mom, look, if you send me to college in London, I'll study hotel keeping and catering, which is what my dad was in, you know, what my dad used to do. So I went to Ealing Technical College to study hotel keeping. And after 6 months, I dropped out because every night I was at the club seeing different bands and actors.
Is that when you got to see the Beatles?
No, the first time I saw the Beatles, I was on the New Sas tour.
Okay.
I was on the New Sas tour, and we arrived in London. I knew that they were on, but they weren't the giant act that they ended up being. You know, they were just getting into huge success. So all the other students, they were mainly students, you know, young university people and so forth. They all went just to museums and all these cultural things. I said, I'm going to see the Beatles, you know.
Damn right.
But I mean, in those days, it was unheard of, though, you know. I mean, you know, so I went down to the Finsbury Park Astoria. I caught the tube there. I didn't have tickets or anything. And I bought a ticket from a scalper right near the front. And on the show, the Beatles, Billy J. Kramer, the Barron Knights, Cilla Black.
Wow.
It was an incredible show. But the Beatles, I mean, you know, Rolf Harris was the compere. The Beatles were just unbelievable. You know, I never seen anything close to that in my life before. And
to get to see that's why I brought it up. I know we're a bit out of context here because you still went from your college days, you came back here and then you went to the USA to do your little tour.
Right. I think in England, when I was in England, I saw everybody you can think of. And I used to do a little road management with a group called Gary Farr and the T-Bones.
Okay.
And Gary Farr, you know, was a real face in the UK. It was a major club name over there.
Okay.
And after the shows, we used to go to a club called the Cromwellian in Kensington, and everybody who was anybody would be down there, from Tom Jones to the various Beatles, to the Stones, Animals, Yardbirds, you name the Kinks. They all came down there. So during that period, I met everybody, you know, and people in the music business.
And
anyway, so
you weren't really coming at it as like booking agent or anything like that.
Not
you said
really.
You were just
I was just trying to
dabbling.
trying to
Get in.
trying to find my feet, so to speak.
Right.
And on my birthday, my mother bought me a $99 for 99 days Greyhound bus ticket in America, to
Wow.
go around America.
Wow.
I
That's something.
mean, I had no money. I didn't have much at all, you know. So by this time, you know, all the British groups that I'd spoken to you about, from the Beatles to the Stones,
Yes.
to all these groups, were covering R&B.
Yes. Especially the Stones.
The Stones, the Beatles as well. They were doing a lot of Chuck Berry, a lot of Motown. You listen to those first two albums, they're all covers. You know, they were, Lennon McCartney had one or two songs on the album. And every group in England was doing R&B. And I had this desire to find out more about R&B. I was attracted to rhythm and blues right from the rock and roll days, because in the early rock and roll days there were two streams of early rock and roll.
Yes.
It was country influenced rock and roll.
Yes.
Which was like Carl Perkins and you know,
Chet Atkins.
Yeah, that type of thing. And then there was R&B influenced rock and roll, which was Little Richard, Fats Domino, Lloyd Price.
Yes.
You know, and
Jerry Lee Lewis, even. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So anyway, I got this $99 for 99 days Greyhound bus ticket.
Wow.
And went from one city to the other. You know, at that time, they had what they call the Chitlin circuit.
Chitlin,
now,
yes.
The Chitlin
Melon circuit.
No, what the Chitlin circuit is, you know, like all the top black performers used to play on a certain circuit, which is like the Apollo in New York, the Regal in Chicago,
yes,
the Royal in Baltimore, the Uptown in Philadelphia, and clubs like the 5-4 Ballroom in Los Angeles, and so I went from one city to the other to see these different shows, these different places, and saw all my heroes. You know, I was very fortunate to also that one of my best friends and one of my biggest influences in London was a South African former bit part actor, Frank Venter, who became head of Atlantic Records,
which
was a boutique label.
Yes.
So, you know, through Frank, I, you know, met a lot of the acts that came over touring, and he used to give us jobs as waiters and so forth at celebrity parties. Myself, there were a group of us that were there. Dennis Brignolato,
yes,
Mike Noble, Neville Whitmell, myself, and you know, he used to help us and give us gigs wherever he could, you know. So that's how I ended up in America, getting back to the American thing. Yes. I saw everybody over there, you know.
It's a good start, eh? I mean, when you start looking at what you were looking at, what you were seeing, the clubs you were visiting, the artists you were getting to see, it was top of the line, man. You know, you were like starting right up there.
I saw the Beatles 8 times. I saw Hendrix 9 times.
What?
I saw the Stones over 20 times. And
it's not fair. So I just wanted to let you know that while we're talking here, there are people that come online and say hello, and they want to say hello to you. We've got Tony Gaza. Good evening, Sins, and welcome to the show, Selwyn. Tony, local brilliant. You know Tony. He was with a band called Fat City. Great drummer, singer. Suzanne Brenner.
Sure.
Terrific to have Selwyn on the show. Love to you both. Thanks, Suze. She always pops in. Marion Wittek. She runs my fan company in Germany, in Hanover. She always comes on the show. And Neil Solomon. Hi, Sins and Selwyn. Hi, Neil. Lovely to see you there, darling. Got lots of lekker stories coming up, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And that's it for now. We've got Jenny Horton. Hi, Jenny. Francine in Holland. We like it. All the way from Cape Town, Jeff Owen. And of course, our big, big friend in Mallorca, Spain, Anthony from World Leisure. You know, he comes on every single week and supports the show. He's partners with Robin Auld in his publishing company. And he lives in Mallorca, so he's always on the thing. Erica Ricketts. Who's Erica? Does she know you?
I'm not sure, you know.
Don't even worry about it. I'm just glad to have you. Morris Fresco.
This is my old friend.
Of course he is.
I remember Morris when he was with the Diamonds.
You see, I love this. Erica, thanks again for coming on the show. So let's continue. So you did this beautiful tour in America. That was your dream.
Right. I came back to London, and you know, like I say, I was quite a naughty boy. I used to do a lot of drugs in those days. You know.
Oh my goodness, you naughty boy!
When I was, and I eventually ended up coming back to South Africa, and I tried to get a job in the record industry, and came up to Joburg. And by this time, I was already very knowledgeable, you know, in my field because of, you know, my experience in England.
UK,
I couldn't. For some reason, I think I intimidated the record executives in Johannesburg because I knew too much, and I decided, to hell with this. I'm going back to Cape Town. I'm going to start out on my own
and own business
and live my dream, you know. And that's what I did. I started Selroy Music.
Ah, yes. And with who? With Roy?
With Martin Dre. So Roy Natterman was a guy in Clive Calder's band, and we were going to go into business at one point, but that didn't work out. But I kept the name because it reminded me that I made a couple of mistakes in my time. So anyway, I started then booking bands in the Cape Town area. The first band I ever managed was the Idiots, who were playing at a club called the Spurs, and I'll never forget. You know, the five of us and myself went in a combi in the Karoo to do a gig at the I think it was Club Agogo on Twist Street in Johannesburg. Oh my God, it was a wild place, you know. But they did very well, and that that was the start of so many bands in South Africa after that I was involved with and managed. You know, Amiga Limited.
Yes.
Finch and Henson.
Finch and Henson. Wow. Yeah.
For a long time.
And you worked with Ronnie Quibell. He was also doing that stuff.
No, Ronnie Quibell was the top international promoter in South Africa at that time. And in but the stuff he was bringing out was Max Bygraves, a lot of variety type acts.
Okay,
very middle of the road, variety, British. And I chatted to him, and he obviously figured, this young guy really knows about a totally different dimension, rock and roll and rhythm and blues, He didn't even know what rhythm and blues was, So
the African community, I mean, the Africans in South Africa have always followed the rhythm and blues, the American style.
Absolutely, in the early days, back
Yes.
then. But it wasn't a big crossover thing in South Africa at that time. Not at all. I
But
mean,
when you brought out people like, say, like Percy Sledge or any of those guys, I'm
yes.
sure it was a black audience mostly.
Well, it was a very difficult political
I know.
climate at that time,
I know.
and we tried to get it to all
Everybody together.
audiences. But I'll give you an example. Like one of the first shows that I booked for Quibell was a show with Peaches and Herb, Arthur Connolly, Will Gaines, Ines Fox. We booked the show for 2 weeks at the Luxorama, and we wanted it to go right around the country. And it ended up doing 13 weeks at the Luxorama, sold out. Every show sold out. And Quibell could not get permission for the show to
mix,
to play to mixed audiences, or even, it was really very, very tough. I had the honor of putting on the first multiracial festival ever in South Africa, which was at the Greenpoint Stadium.
Okay.
And it happened actually more by chance, because I had made applications to have a totally integrated audience, and the Minister of Interior at that time, Connie Mulder, came back and said that you can have mixed audience, but they have to be separated. I thought, well, I suppose it's better than a kick in the ass,
Yes, absolutely.
So what happened on the day? Is my compere host was a guy named Lucky Luke Friedman.
Okay. Yes.
He was, was like a hippie guy, and he's, it was peace and love and Woodstock and all that.
Absolutely.
So he says from the stage, why don't we all get together? Everybody come down off the stands. The police, the dogs, everybody looked at him as if this is everybody was hugging and kissing of all races, and nothing like that had ever been seen in South Africa before,
Absolutely not.
So that was the first time.
And that's probably the way to do it, eh?
Well, I don't know. It could have backfired big time, but it made every major newspaper in the world,
Well, I can imagine, of course, because it was very different times. We just got a message from Dorothy Silva. I was Selwyn's first secretary at Selroy Music.
That's true. That's my cousin.
Hello, Dorothy. So, okay, so we're moving around, we're getting things happening. When did you decide to go back to America?
Well, let me go back a little. With Quibell, I brought a lot of rock and roll, a lot of R&B, people like the Trogs.
Ah.
I did 3 tours with the Trogs.
Wow.
John Rolls, Petula Clark, Demis Roussos, who was with Aphrodite's Child. I don't know if you remember Demis.
Of course, Demis Roussos. That big Greek man, he's lovely.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, by 1989, I was at the top of my field in South Africa.
Yes.
Supposedly, it was the biggest agency in Africa, and I had a strong management roster.
Yes.
And I also decided I was going to get married.
Oh, you decided?
Yeah.
Well, you were seeing somebody, hopefully.
I've been going out with my ex-wife for about 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
And but what I had also decided is that no matter how successful I was in South Africa, I did not want to raise a family there under the apartheid,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
So her family was in Australia,
Okay.
and we got married in January, we ended up going to Australia. And unfortunately, which was good. I really loved Australia, but the marriage only lasted 5 years, and I did quite well in Australia, but it was very tough. From being a top dog in my home country
To starting
to
again.
starting again in
I
Australia.
know. But you brought a lot of good artists. I mean, weren't you bringing
Australia,
Susie Quattro?
Susie Quattro twice. Yeah,
Yeah, they
that
love
was
her there.
but
And
not.
Smokey,
I got to
those
tell
kind
you,
of bands.
I got to tell you something about Susie Quattro.
I think she's great.
I don't think she's great. I think she is the greatest female rocker of all time, and I've seen them all. I swear to God,
Wow.
she is a phenomenal performer.
Yes.
Well, she certainly was in those days. I haven't
Yes.
seen her for years, and
Mm.
I'll say this now, just once: the fact that she has not been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of
Yeah.
is absolutely disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. It's a travesty.
Yeah,
Because she's been around
I don't.
since way back. Yeah.
Way back, Cindy. I don't know if you've seen. There's a movie. Have you seen the movie Susie Q? Check it out.
No. Okay.
It's about
It's her
Susie's life.
story.
It's
Yeah.
about Susie's life.
I
Yeah,
think I
and
did
they
see it
interview
though.
people like they interview people like Joan Jett and Chris Pine, and they all say,
She's the queen.
my biggest influence was Susie Quattro.
Yeah.
And
She never got that big. No, she didn't get the big kudos that she should have gotten. Definitely not.
Well, she did in Europe and South Africa and
Yes.
Australia and New Zealand, but not in America. In America, she had a part in the series Happy Days as Leather Toscadero.
I remember. Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
She had a one huge hit with Chris Norman, Stumbling In. But
also her stuff was great.
her stuff was phenomenal.
Her stuff. I've done a couple of those songs, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah, her live performance was outstanding. She knew how to work an audience to the T.
She was a rocker. She was a real rocker. She knew what she was doing. Great bass player. Knew everything.
Anyway, so also in Australia, I brought out Hot Chocolate.
Yes. George Thorogood.
George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Smokey, the original Smokey with Chris Norman. And by that time, there was a new lady in my life, and I decided that I wanted to go to America where all my musical interests came from.
Yes.
So my girlfriend at the time, Jade Brown, her name was, she started breaking as a model, and was a top model in Europe and so forth. The two of us went to live in America together, and that's how I ended up in America.
Right.
And we are. That only lasted for about a year after we got back, but because her modeling career took off, and my career started taking off in America.
Tell me, Selwyn.
Yes.
Let's. I want to bring it to something that is quite spectacular. because firstly, this band has been known by so many people in the world. They've had hits after hit after hit. I have to talk about your association with Bread and David Gates.
Sure. So, what transpired is this. I managed Bread. I put the original band back together, but the circumstances surrounding it were quite amazing. For years in South Africa, I think 3 or 4 tours, I'd booked an artist named Dobie Gray. Do you remember Dobie Gray?
Yes, of course.
Give me the Beatles.
Everybody, yeah.
Free my
Everybody
soul.
knows Dobie.
Okay, so Dobie, I went to Nashville, where Dobie lived, and I was staying at the Holiday Inn then, and Dobie came to visit me. He said to me, "Yeah, I'm in the middle of making a new album." He says to me, and one of my backup singers is a guy named James Griffin from Bread. So I said, "Are you kidding?" Right now as we speak,
Putting the band back together.
no. The Best of Bread is a top 5 record in South Africa. And every 5 years or 4, every few years, that Best of Bread kept on coming back in the South African charts. So Dobie says to me, "You want to meet him?" So I said, "Yeah, I'd love to meet him." So anyway, Jimmy comes to the Holiday in the place I was staying, and I said to him, "I'd love to get the band back together, the 4 guys from Bread, but do you think we can do something?" He said, "Well, David really is not very keen on doing this, but if you, I'll certainly have another try." I said, I'm certain I can offer you a number of tours." So he tried, never heard anything for 6 months. So I phoned him. I said, "Look, let me try." So I tried to reach David, and I kept on phoning him at his number in Palm Desert. In the meantime, he was at his home in Mackay, in his ranch in Northern California. So I was in South Africa, and I get on holiday over Christmas, and I get a message. "This is David Gates. Selwyn, I'm sorry I haven't called you back, but I've been at my home in Northern California." So he says, "Please contact me." And I contacted him, and we arranged to meet as soon as I got back to America, which was in January, within a few days of me getting back. And David and his wife, Jo Rita, were wonderful people, really amazing people, apart from David being one of the most talented people I've ever met. We spoke, and as we left that evening, I said to David, "Do you think you'd be interested?" He said, "Selwyn, I would love you to manage me personally, but I'm not sure whether I'm really interested in getting back together with Bread." So I said to David, "For me, first prize would be to put the original band back together." So he says, "Okay, look, within a week, I'll send you a fax," because emails weren't that common in those days. "I'll send you a fax of what it's going to take for me to get together with the rest of the band." So true to his word, within a week, he gave me a list of things. I'm not going to go through all the things, but I'll just tell you that 2 of the things were that I managed the band, and I put together a world tour.
Okay.
That was the one thing. The other thing, that the band was going out as David Gates and Bread, and everybody knew them as David Gates and Bread anyway. So that was little, and then a few other business-related things. And on the 11th of February, 1996, after I'd been to each individual the four members of Bread, that's Mike Potts, Larry Nechtel, James Griffin, and David's wife, Charita, and myself, met at in one of the function rooms at the Airport Holiday Inn in Nashville. And I already had dates for them in Atlantic City in August, and those were the first dates that we did. And then in September, we came to South Africa. I had every promoter in South Africa at the time wanting them, but I went with Attie van Wyk, which was the beginner of big concerts.
Big concerts, yeah.
Well, I'd known Attie since he was a musician that I used to book in 1960.
In the days.
Way back. So, you know, and that was the beginning of
their new
amazing friendship with Attie as well. And they were also the beginning of the world tour with Bread. And we did from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, England.
And I'm sure it was very successful.
In Manila, we did 90,000 people.
What?
I'm telling you. Bread were bigger than Michael Jackson in Asia, in Southeast Asia.
Julian, have you got a video? I want to see this. Everybody will feel so nostalgic right now.
Hey, have you ever tried really reaching out for the other side? Or maybe climbing on rainbows, but baby, here goes. Dreams there for those who sleep, and life it's for us to keep. And if you're wondering what this all is leading to, I wanna make it with you. I really think that we could make it, girl. No, you don't know me well, and every little thing only time will tell. But you believe the things that I do, and we'll see it through. Life can be short or long, and love can be right or wrong. And if I chose the one I'd like to help me through, I'd like to make it with you. I really think that we could make it, girl. Baby, you know that dreams there for those who sleep, and life it's for us to keep. And if I chose the one I'd like to help me through, I'd like to make it with you. I really think that we could make it, girl. I'd like to make it with you.
You know, that's classic stuff. I mean, you can't beat that. Good songwriting and all that. And it was also the era. It was, Carpenters and America and all those kind of bands that were speaking to the heart of everybody.
Absolutely. Well,
You know,
in fact, it's funny you should mention the Carpenters because Jimmy Griffin from Bread. I mean, the guys in Bread were all incredibly accomplished musicians
absolutely.
and songwriters.
Yes.
Jimmy Griffin wrote "For All We Know" which was one of the huge
Carpenters,
Yeah,
huge.
yeah. Jimmy.
You see, I could feel
Yeah,
that vibe through it. And
yeah.
let me ask you a crazy question here.
What's that?
You like what when you take on an artist?
Yes.
I mean, you're a committed guy. You're not the kind of guy that's just going to take on 20 artists, excuse me, and just take them on and just sort of have them sort of working or whatever it is. I think you're the kind of man in your work and in your business that when you take on somebody, you take them on for real. So,
Absolutely. I
what
mean,
are your deal breakers? What is it? If you take on an artist, what are your deal breakers?
well, there are a number of essential things to me. And the least important is money, funnily enough. The most important thing for me is I've got to believe in that artist
That's
and
it.
see the potential
That's
that
it.
they're going to make it big, and I know I can really do something. That's number one.
Yes.
Number two, no matter how talented and no matter how much I believe in that artist, I've got to get on with him on a mental level.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've been, over the years, I've been involved with some artists that are incredibly talented, but, they're heavily into drugs or into this or into that.
Yeah.
And, it just makes it impossible to work, And,
Sure.
and the third, you know, the third thing is that I've really got to enjoy what I'm doing because this is what's motivated me in this business right from when I was a kid, as I've told you.
Yes.
I mean, I've been very blessed in that all my dreams as a teenager have come true. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and again, I could have been probably if I focused on the money aspect, I could have been a much richer guy, but that's never been important.
Well,
I, I,
you've made a living. You've made a good living.
yes,
Um,
but I attribute that. No, I don't mean to sound egotistical, but I attribute that to the fact that I think I'm good at what I do.
well, yeah.
You know,
And
I've,
so you should be.
yeah, and I've made a decent living, but I'm just saying, I probably, if I focused on money, I could have been a lot wealthier. But that's not.
It's not everything. We all know this. Yes, money makes things the world. Firstly, money makes the world go round. Money makes things easier. But let's talk about artists. I mean, how many artists have made millions and millions and thrown it all away on drugs, on holidays, on fast cars, whatever it is? Listen, I have no judgment anymore about what an artist should or shouldn't do. Take drugs, don't take drugs. Drink, don't drink. Screw around, don't screw around. Whatever the hell you want to do. But at least when you put out some music, make it authentic. Make it something that people feel good about.
Right. Absolutely.
And the music industry, Selwyn, I could talk to you about this because you've come from those days. The music industry has changed so much. The focus is on different things. Talk about that a bit.
Well, the music industry as we knew it really does not exist anymore. I mean,
No.
for a starter, an artist's career was motivated by record sales.
Absolutely. Number one records and stuff like that.
Today, it's the exact opposite. It's by live.
Yeah.
They make the big names make their money out of out of live shows and tours and
Sure.
performances. You don't have to have a lot of big hits to be a big attraction anymore. And I must tell you, though, that also the other thing, in my opinion, the standard of musicianship today overall is gone down. It's not like it was.
Mediocre. There's a word
Mediocre.
called mediocrity has become the buzzword, that
Sure.
everybody accepts mediocrity, and
Right.
it so becomes mediocrity is okay. It's
Right.
okay to not be that great. It's okay to just get away with it. Oh, she's got a big name. We'll just make fluff and make a really big video, and she's have lots of boobies sticking out and all that stuff. She'll be fine. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I don't think the music is focused on as much as the production of
Correct.
the
Well,
hullabaloo
I'll give-
surrounding the whole thing.
Right. I'll give you a typical example of that.
Please do.
Like I've seen, as you know,
Mm.
all the great acts of the 60s. But the greatest act that I ever saw in my life, without question, is James Brown at his peak in 1966. Greatest performer. There was no production. It was a band that used to do dance routines with the greatest band. And Brown himself was just the most amazing showman, you know.
Yes.
And I'll give you another example. I mean, seeing the Beatles back then and seeing the Stones and seeing the Stones today.
Yes.
Now, I mean, look what they've accomplished and they're an incredible band, but so much production in their acts, you know,
That's
all
it.
balloons and all sorts of
That's it.
crap, you know.
There's so much
best-
production. It's
the best-
taken away.
Yeah, the best
It has
I've ever
taken away.
seen, correct. The best I've ever seen them was at the Finsbury Park Astoria in 1964, where it was a bare bones British R&B band, you know, just doing, and I mean, Jagger was playing and kicking ass, you know.
Playing and kicking ass.
Yeah,
There was no finery.
no production, you know.
No production, no finery. It was real music, and that's why I can talk about Janis Joplin, because she didn't give a shit about all the finery and the nonsense. All
Exactly.
she wanted to do was perform, get up there and do her thing. She was as raw as anything, and that's what made her who she was.
Correct, absolutely.
You know, covering up the edges and smoothing out everything, and the long nails and the hair and the 74 hairdos in one video and 65 costume changes in a video and stuff like that. It's like, where's the song, man? I just want to hear music. So that's the music business for you. Of course it's going to change. Of course we're going to change as human beings. You spoke about Petula Clark.
Yes, ma'am.
I think she's a spectacular artist.
Right, I agree with you. She's phenomenal.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Can we see one of her videos, please? I'd love to see that song, because I love that song. Who wrote that song? Very famous man.
Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin wrote this song. It's insane.
Why is my heart so light? Why are the stars so bright? Why is the sky so blue since the hour I met you? Flowers are smiling bright, smiling for our delight, smiling so tenderly for the world, you and me. I know why the world is smiling, smiling so tenderly. It hears the same old story through all eternity. Love, this is my song. Here is a song, a serenade to you. The world cannot be wrong if in this world there's you. I care not what the world may say. Without your love there is no day. So love, this is my song. Here is a song, a serenade to you. I care not what the world may say. Without your love there is no day. So love, this is my song. Here is a song, a serenade to you.
Awesome, hey?
Yeah. Do you want
That's
to know the story behind my relationship with Petula?
Well, of course we do, darling.
All right. So I was in London visiting my brother in the late 90s, and we were invited to John Ashby, Petula's manager, for barbecue or a
Okay.
luncheon. I can't remember. Anyway, you know, I knew that Petula had been a superstar in all around the world in the 60s and 70s, and I had booked her for Quibel in the 70s, so I knew Petula.
Okay.
I said to John, I don't see Petula much in America anymore. Is there any reason for that? So he said to me, well, you know, none of the major agencies are getting her work. So I said, well, John, do you mind if I have a go? Because I know that I can get her top dates in the country.
Yeah.
And I immediately, within a week, I got her the Hilton in Atlantic City, where she's played for 3 or 4 days. And that was, I booked her everywhere in the United States after that for about 15 years.
Wow.
And you know, she is just a fantastic performer. She's really a great performer. I mean, she was a child star, as you know. But, you know, and missed so many hits. You know, she could do an act just one
She could
hit.
do anything.
One
And
hit
she's just
after
one
that.
of those those special artists, those one in a millions that just sing like a Helen Reddy, you know, they just deliver. They are not big. There's no big pomp and ceremony. There's no big belting. It's just beautifully delivered. I
Right.
want to look at some of those photos. You've got photos of you with famous people that we have to see, Selwyn. Come on. Let's take a look, and then you're going to tell us who these people are and what you were doing and all that stuff. The Fortunes.
That were the Fortunes. Yeah, I took them to Canada and Las Vegas.
Okay.
We played a circuit which I did in Canada, in all the major northern cities, in actually some more southern cities in Canada. Nice group. Legends of R&B.
Wow.
That was a
It
series.
was a show.
Yeah, there were three. Ati asked me to put together a show of the type of acts that I used to book for Quibell,
Okay.
R&B shows. So we did a series of shows called Legends of R&B. The first one consisted of Gerald Alston and the Manhattans and Regina Bell.
Okay.
The second Legends of R&B were the Stylistics, the Whispers, and Lenny Williams. And Lenny I love, I love all those acts, but Lenny was the lead singer of Tower of Power, and
Of course. My
he
God.
He had that huge solo hit called "'Cause I Love You," often regarded as one of the best love songs ever. Listen to it sometime; it's amazing. Lenny's incredible.
Okay. Brian McKnight.
Yeah, that was the third Legends in concert with Brian McKnight.
He's awesome.
And Brandy, yes, he's a great voice.
And also a great songwriter. I met him at ASCAP in LA
right.
a long, long time ago when he was just starting to come out as a songwriter. And he just played in front of us just with a guitar. Who's that?
That's Taj Mahal.
Whoa.
Yeah. Love Taj.
Taj Mahal.
Great. That's little Anthony I managed, little Anthony and the Imperials.
You still manage it, little Anthony?
No, I don't anymore, but I did for many years. But that picture was actually taken in Elvis's suite at the Hilton International in Las Vegas.
Well, Elvis was gone already, though.
Elvis had gone, but the suite is kept intact.
Lived on.
It cost
gosh.
Many thousands.
I can imagine.
That was Four Tops, the original
Four Tops. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was way back. That's Fats Domino, one of my idols as a young boy.
I love him.
I love Fats too.
No, he's awesome.
He was a great
for
man.
Real. He's for real.
Yeah. That's David Gates.
David. Ati.
And Ati, yeah.
And you, Selwyn, looking very glamorous.
Probably
I like that look.
That's Cool in the Gang.
Ah, wow. Celebrate good time. Come on.
That was a reunited with the Idiots, the first group I ever managed.
Reggie, my friend Reggie.
Yeah.
Great bass player. Great musician.
That's Charlie Wilson, Uncle Charlie.
Okay, Uncle
He's a
Charlie.
great act. To this day, he's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the Isley brothers.
Whew.
Ronald Isley and Ernie Isley.
Okay. These are people, hey?
That's Smokey.
Smokey.
The group. There was the original Smokey with Chris Norman.
Are they still doing some legend tours here and there, heritage things?
Well, there's no tours anywhere with this band.
No, not now. No, obviously not.
The last tour that I did for Ati with Legends with Brian McKnight and Brandy.
Okay.
That
must have gone down very well, though. Rod McEwen. I love him.
I did Rod McEwen for Ronnie Quibell.
My friend Mark Bloomberg mentioned, do you remember Dave Yeller?
Yes, very well.
Okay, so he also brought out Rolf Harris and Cilla Black. Brian McKnight and Brandy.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. You did.
I did. What
yes.
happened? Dave Yeller was Quibell's PR.
Okay.
Public relations person. And, all the acts that I used to book for Quibell, he used to promote, promote the shows, So that's, I guess, Jason and the Scorchers was a rock act from Nashville, incredible,
Wow.
who I took to Australia actually.
Wow.
Wonderful act, yeah.
I love that. They look like rockers,
They were,
like country rockers.
yeah.
There's little Anthony. I
And
know we've got a video of him. We're going to play out with that video. He's an incredible singer.
yeah.
Shoo. So, when we've talked about, the early years and the medium years, your last few years in New Orleans, what you've been doing, you had a very heavy thing happen with Katrina. I mean, you lost your home.
Well, I think the most, firstly, 70% of the city, more than 70%, was underwater for
Sure.
Katrina.
I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, I'm fortunately, in my case, I was on the 15th floor. I still am. I am right now, as we speak.
Okay.
And what happened is but there was a lot of damage, because
I'm sure.
I had hurricane shutters, but the people above me, the water came through the walls and the roof. So I had damage,
Oh,
a huge amount of damage that had to be sorted out. During that period, I stayed for 6 months with my cousins, Max and Carol Wolf.
in
And-
Vegas. Where were you?
Initially in Columbus, Georgia.
Okay.
And then after that, I moved to Vegas.
Yes.
That I was able
That's
to.
where I saw the Vegas thing, yeah.
Yeah, I was able to continue running my business from Max and Carol's, and then in Vegas. And when I was in Vegas, I came back and forth between Vegas and New Orleans just to get my place sorted out.
Mm.
And in 2013, I came back to live in New Orleans, and the city's, completely recovered.
It really has, eh?
Yeah,
Isn't that a fantastic thing? That's, there's been so many natural disasters. I mean, even in America, in LA, I was in the 94 quake. And
I was there as well.
yeah,
You were there the same time as me.
we were, yeah.
Yeah.
And we lost our apartment and we had to move and this and that. And it was just a really strange thing. And what I was amazed with is how many people just get down to help.
Sure. Yeah. Well.
When the chips are down,
Yeah.
the cream rises to the top. The people get out there and they say, let me help you. How can I help you?
Right.
And I think that the music business also did, in some way, the community of the music business is a little bit like that. They try and help each other.
Yeah, they do. It depends,
Depends.
A lot of different kind of personalities, but
Yes.
my experiences with people in the music business are 90% good.
Sure.
I don't say that there's a lot of perfect people there, but none of us
No,
are
there's.
perfect anyway.
Listen, are there many perfect people in the corporate world? I'm just
No,
like,
it's-
wah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Selwyn, if we really want to talk about it, I mean, if you wanted to work with people, I'd rather work with musicians,
Yeah.
because you know how it rolls, man. You got the lay of the land. You know what's cooking.
Right.
It's easier to deal with that when you say you've worked with some artists. They do too many drugs, they do too many this, and they can't get themselves together. There will always be that, because I think it is part of the industry that everybody sees the lights. They're like, woo, being in a rock band allows me to do what I want, really, but not really,
That's-
So,
the most successful acts, are really those that even if they started off that way, they're cool.
They
do
they're
it.
cool now. They're totally chilled. I mean, I look at the Gibb brothers and those kind of bands, and they've always like just kept it together, you know.
I mean, you look at a guy like Jagger; he's incredibly fit.
He's incredibly fit, and he's what, 80?
Yeah.
Jesus, unbelievable! I love stuff like that. So you and Ati started. I mean, Ati started big concerts, right?
Yeah, I think in 1990.
Okay. And then you just started bringing acts for him and doing all those legends and all that stuff?
Well, with Ati, it really started in oh no, I've done many shows with Ati.
Yeah.
Tons of shows.
Yeah.
But with Ati, it's really started in the 90s when I booked Bread. Every promoter in South Africa, as I said, wanted the tour.
Yes.
And I decided to go with Ati, and we sort of renewed an old acquaintance, and which became a very strong friendship, which we are today. I mean, I love Ati to bits, and Isa. They just
great people. They're very good people. I'm hoping Ati's going to come on the show soon.
He's an interesting guy.
He's got lots of good stories to tell as well.
Nice man.
Very nice. Yes.
Anyway, I was speaking to Ati, and I said, look, Ati, I'm really majorly into rhythm and blues and soul, and I noticed you don't do a lot of R&B acts. He said, Selwyn, I'd love to, but my thing is rock and roll. So I said, well, I'll put together some stuff for you. So within 2 weeks of Red, I had booked a tour with Keith Sweat,
yes,
Joe and Deborah Cox, which was a huge success for him,
I'm sure.
And then subsequently, many of those R&B Peter Stuyvesant spectaculars with Brian McKnight.
Oh, yes.
Renee, Montel Jordan, a lot of different acts. We would have like all stadium shows. We did a lot of things together.
Those are big shows, and they're
all big shows.
Let's talk about Stevie Wonder and Ella Fitzgerald and names like that. Where did they come into your spectrum?
Well, I mean, I'd seen Stevie Wonder many times. I've never actually worked with him.
Yes.
And Ella Fitzgerald as well.
Yes.
I mean, the first time I saw Stevie Wonder was when I was in England on the Tamla Motown Review. Okay, and on the show was Stevie Wonder, who was like about 16 at that time, and less, I think, maybe. And also Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Supremes, the Marvelettes. It was a great show, and Georgie Payne. Well, there was a British act that was on there.
Yes.
But the interesting thing about that tour was, when Motown had really not taken off at that point.
Okay.
Dusty Springfield was the biggest
crossover kind of act.
No, she was the one that promoted Motown in England.
Oh, okay. Because she always. I mean, I thought that the African Americans loved her.
Yes, they did. But she was a great actor.
Yeah.
Getting back to what I was telling you about the Motown Review. When it was booked to play England, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles were the headliners. And by the time the tour got there, the Supremes had something like 5 number 1 hits in a row. So they were by far the biggest act on the bill.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's amazing how things change over a
Change.
period of months. Now I had that discussion with the late Mary Wilson once.
Wow.
I was going to manage her at one time,
Yes.
and we spoke about those days and that what had transpired
And how things can change. And you would be on tour with somebody and you had a huge hit and suddenly everybody else on the tour became chopped liver, I would love to see a few more pictures and then I'm going to ask you sort of the pertinent questions that I always like to ask, and then play out with a video of little Anthony. I think that's going to be beautiful. Can we look at some more photos? Do we have some more photos? Jules, I think he's got some, because you did send us a lot of great photos. Wow. There she is.
That was Petula at the Cannery in Las Vegas.
Wow. Lovely. Shoo. I love that.
That's
Susie.
Yeah.
Woo! Susie Quattro.
Yeah.
So we met her. She was in South Africa, and she wanted to meet us because we were the all-girl rock band, kind of thing. And we met her. We got a picture of us with her, and I thought she's so cool.
Yeah, she
Super
is.
cool. Yeah.
Lovely person too. She, I'm writing a book, and
Yes.
and she wrote a fabulous thing. For her. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. Oh, Mary J. Blige.
No, that's a tour that we did in the late 90s, I think. Mary J. Blige, Casey and JoJo, and Kirk Whalum. That's an interesting thing, because Kirk Whalum was actually a jazz player, but he had a hit with a Stevie Wonder song.
Yes.
And when I booked Kirk, I didn't realize that the woman that sang on the song was not coming out with him. So 2 days before, I found out, and I phoned Kirk's manager, and I said, she's got to come out. The only reason that we booked Kirk is because of his hit in South Africa. What's that song called? Something Part of Love or whatever. That Stevie Wonder song. Anyway.
All is Fair in Love.
Yeah. Something.
My favorite song.
Anyway, so at like 48 hours notice, they brought the singer on the record with Kirk.
Thank you, Lord. Deborah Cox. Yeah.
Peace with Deborah Cox and Joe. That was the first R&B tour that I booked for Ati.
Yeah. And it was good.
It was packed. The stadium.
Packed. Love it.
Stadium shows all over the country.
Woo. In Epitombi.
Epitombi. I was approached to book them, and I did an Australian season at the casino in Sydney, and then we did a New Zealand tour with Epitombi.
It must have gone down very well, though.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
The Manhattans.
Yeah, that's Gerald Alston, to me one of the greatest voices in R&B.
Also, hey?
Yeah.
See, those voices, those R&B voices are like, you just can't touch them. They're a different ball game. We're talking, even the Smokey Robinsons and those guys. I mean, it's just like, there's something there that it surpasses everything that you understand about music, because it just hits you where you live.
Right.
Yeah. So when you're writing a book.
Uh-huh.
I bet it's going to be a doozy.
There's so much stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And it's hard to remember everything.
I know, that's what happened to me. I could not remember everything. I left out something like my best friend at school. I completely left him out. And I'm like, what did I do? It's just all in the melee and the mix and everything. Oh my Lord.
But I've got a ghostwriter who's very good. He's named Neil Pellegrin, who does the classic 50s R&B show here in New Orleans on radio. And he's a young man, but with an incredible knowledge of the history. So, you know, we get on well. We feel
the two of you together are making it happen. Have you got a working title? Or are you just sort of?
Yeah, it's a working title is From Cape Town to the Crescent City, the musical journey of Selwyn.
I like it. I love it. Nothing wrong with it. Selwyn, you've got so many great stories to tell. I mean, we've just shaved the top of this beautiful sculpture, which has been your life. There's so much to talk about. We are in our last few minutes anyway. I think you've made a difference in the music industry. I think you have made a difference. Thanks. And that's a nice legacy to leave behind, I think. Just to know that, hey, I will be remembered for this. I was doing that at this time and it was different. Yeah. And I think people respect that. So I think you're leaving a very strong legacy. That's why this book is going to be pretty cool. I look forward to reading this. So anybody who's been listening out there who came in early and said, oh, who's Selwyn Miller? Now you know who Selwyn Miller is. Yeah. And Selwyn Miller is what I said in the beginning. He is an icon in his field, especially. He brought that sound here. He supported that sound, and not many people were doing it at the time. If I had to ask you right now, what matters to you right now? What is Selwyn's life about right now?
Well, you know, I manage a band called Toast.
Okay.
Now, which is an interesting thing. I mean, basically,
I think I saw that. Aren't they a cover band of something?
They're a tribute band to Bread.
To Bread. That's it. Bread. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
The reason that I signed them is because I really, you know, their live performances. You know, there's a similar quality. Although the lead singer is different to David Gates or Jimmy Griffin.
Yeah.
He has a similar quality, and they're all good musicians. They're all good players and nice guys. They're from Utah, from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay.
And I just signed them prior to the pandemic.
Oh man.
You know, it's been a very rough start, but I'm hoping that things will change now. And working with them, I've got a number of other situations.
Yes.
Of a couple of major acts that I'm talking to that about management. But of course, as long as this pandemic persists, one's hands are tied, no matter who you know.
So retirement, that's not really a word. You've done it a few times, haven't you?
I tried it once, you know. I tried it once, and I got so bored, and actually I was having lunch in Cape Town, and and that's when I got that call from Ati.
Yeah.
He said to me, Selwyn, will you put some old school R&B shows?
Let's do this thing. Yeah.
And that's how that.
I think you've got a lot of stuff still to do. I really do.
Well, you know, it's so much part of my life that as long as I've got breath in my body, I can't imagine doing anything else, you know.
No, and so you shouldn't. Yeah. Tess Weber says, thanks, guys. It's a wonderful interview. It's so true. Selwyn has always been his own person with his amazing passion for R&B. And that's just the way to end this beautiful interview. Selwyn, I've had so much fun talking to you. You've got still 1,000 more stories. But can we play out with that beautiful voice? I think...
Little Anthony.
Yeah, little Anthony is going to be...
I'm going out of my head.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here, as you do. We'll see you next week. We've got another icon next week. Selwyn, peace and love all the way, man.
Thank you. To you, too.
Well, I think I'm going out of my head. Yes, I think I'm going out of my head over you. Over you. I want you to want me. I need you so badly. I can't think of anything but you. And I think I'm going out of my head, 'cause I can't explain the tears that I shed over you. Over you. I see you each morning, but you just walk past me. You don't even know that I exist. Going out of my head over you. Out of my head over you. Out of my head day and night. Night and day and night. Alright, I must be the way to yours. There's no reason why my being shy should keep us apart. And I think I'm going out of my head. Yes, I think I'm going out of my head. Going out of my head over you. Out of my head over you. Out of my head day and night. Night and day and night. Oh, come on. Yeah. All right. Yeah.